A very happy July 4th on this very special day, 250th anniversary of this great nation. There's never been a country like the United States. We speak as three proud citizens, and we want to talk in this video about three things that we find very good about healthcare in the United States. Of course, there are many things which are not right about healthcare and medicine, and we talk about a lot of those things as well. But it's important to not forget that there are good things about living in the United States and getting healthcare here. And I definitely vouch for that as somebody who didn't grow up in this country. Dr. Peter, would you like to go first on this July 4th?
Of course. So happy 4th to everyone out there. I think the thing I value the most about healthcare in the United States is the speed at which it moves. And so that may not be really a blanket statement to all, because we do know that everyone has a tough time really getting to appointments, but it's really the speed of testing, which is really important. And so I know that as a cardiologist, if I have a patient that is having trouble or chest pain, that I can get them to have a cardiac catheterization or a stent or something like bypass surgery literally within a few weeks. And that is unheard of in other countries, especially with socialized medicine. And so that definitely is a huge benefit, because a lot of the acute disease states don't have time to wait. And I think we underestimate how well we do that in the United States with testing, with how the acuity of an illness can lead to really being treated quite quickly. And I think that I've had patients that have gone for cardiac catheterization and then the next day have gone emergently to bypass surgery.
I completely agree with you on that. So I can tell you a story. When I did my first on-call in the United States as an intern, I'd come from the United Kingdom. I remember being called down to see a patient, this was in Baltimore, who had had a suspected stroke. And I could not believe that before I'd even been called, they had had a CT, they'd had an MRI scan. That to me was unthinkable, especially an MRI scan. It would take ages in the United Kingdom, but they had everything done. They'd had all their workup, and then the decision was made to admit. And I thought, wow. And I've seen this happen over and over. The speed, especially for an emergent situation, is phenomenal. In fact, I don't think there could be many countries that are actually faster than the United States, especially with emergency care. Which brings us nicely on to what you want to talk about, right, Dr. Ben?
Yeah, so it's really a similar thing that I'm very thankful for on this 4th of July is that trauma care. So severe injuries, terrible things that happen to people, trauma care in big areas is always or almost always very impressive. You get a lot of specialists moving very quickly, highly trained surgeons come to the bedside, bring people to the ORs and save lives every day. I'm very impressed with that. In other countries I've been to, trauma care is slow, clunky, outcomes are terrible. We still have bad outcomes here at times, and it doesn't always go the way we want it to. But I have to say, my experience with the trauma care I've seen is really incredible. You compare that to preventative care, where we do not do as good a job or a very good job at all. But the trauma care, the acute care, I am so impressed with it most of the time.
I've frequently actually said over the years that I really believe that a homeless person in the United States who has acute trauma, or even coming into hospital with something like sepsis, will get better care than a rich person almost anywhere else. I mean, they will airlift you, the ambulance arrives really fast. Of course, there's another side to this as well. It's very expensive care, and if you don't have insurance, you will be lumbered with a very big bill. But yeah, trauma care is phenomenal, and you have something like an accident, you have probably the best chance of survival compared to almost any other country. I know that you have experience with Europe as well. Do you agree with that, Dr. Peter?
Absolutely. I trained in Ireland for a long time. I was able to see how socialized medicine worked, and I realized that it does have a lot of benefit and access to healthcare. But acute care we do so well, and not just with trauma. I mean, even with people coming in with heart attacks. I mean, if you think about it, like I've had people come in to the emergency room with a major heart attack, and the cath lab right away takes them in. I mean, they go into the emergency room and they're wheeled right to the cath lab. And we have something called door to balloon time. So it's a minute someone enters the emergency room and the catheter is placed in their heart and the balloon is inflated to open up that artery that in some cases is literally like less than 12 minutes, 10 minutes. I mean, that's crazy if you think about how fast things can move. And I really don't think you have that a lot in other countries. I may be mistaken, but I've seen and been in parts of Europe where I don't see that. And so I think acute care across the board is really good. It's a chronic care. And again, the preventative care that we could drastically improve.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, chronic care, I'll be very honest, absolutely sucks. And I don't like the medical industrial complex and the treadmill of how people get sucked into the system. But we're being positive today because it's July 4th and it's the 250th anniversary of a great country. There's a reason that I chose to come to the United States and many, many good things. But above all else, the people, fantastic people here. So I will go next, which ties to people, is that I believe that in the United States, people have an unbelievable amount of rights compared to other countries. So we take it for granted here, but if you have a complaint or something goes wrong, there are avenues to go down. Hospitals, healthcare systems will usually have a process. Your complaint should be taken seriously, especially if it's a very serious complaint. And there's legal avenues to go down. And of course, the pendulum has swung so far the other way where attorneys have so much power and people practice defensive medicine. But I always like to say, can you imagine if there were no attorneys and doctors could pretty much do whatever they want and there was no legal recourse? Imagine that. That would be the other extreme. You have to have the right amount of oversight. But I do think that patients have amazing rights compared to other countries. I mean, if you get into the hospital, isn't it a federal requirement? You're presented with legal rights of Medicare, etc. And those are there. And of course, some hospitals are better than others, but this is just not the case in other countries, especially if you don't have money. So even if you're very poor in the US, you will still have rights as a human being, unalienable rights. And in the
That's correct.
original founding document, you are treated like a human being. But try being poor in rural Africa or Asia or India. They will literally laugh at you, wave goodbye. You will have no legal recourse, nothing. You literally are a second-class citizen.
No, it's absolutely true. I mean, when you come in very ill to an emergency room, that place becomes colorblind and it becomes financially blind. It just treats people. Now, there's stuff that happens later, the bills and everything like that. But I do think acute care, the beginning of it, the helping people when they walk in the door, when they're very, very ill, that is a pretty good streamlined system. And yes, there are mistakes that are made, but it's something that I think we've done right. There are a lot of things we've done wrong, but that's one thing that seems to be going in our way.
I agree. Absolutely. So those are our positives with the US healthcare system. Of course, we'll be back soon, focusing on other things and areas to improve. But today's a special day. And let's close with a statement from each of us about why we are proud to be an American. Dr. Ben.
I'm proud to be an American for many reasons, but predominantly our history. And the history of this country is it has a very strong people and it survived a lot of difficult things. I remember I was taking care of an ex Marine and we were looking at the TV and some horrible thing had just happened. And he said, "Don't worry, the tensile strength of America is quite strong."
It's well put. Okay. Dr. Peter.
I'm proud to be American. I am the first generation of both my parents coming from Europe and really gave them, and my father especially, who is a practicing physician, really was able to work himself up and create this a really great life, not only for himself, but for us to really have access to a lot of things. And I really feel like I've had so many opportunities in life, which I don't think that would have happened elsewhere. And look at us here. We have the opportunity to be able to even get on camera and speak to people and help people, hopefully, which often doesn't happen in all parts of the world. I mean, there's a lot of censorship. Sometimes things maybe are said too much in different parts of the world. But I do think that we have a lot to be grateful for.
Yeah, we do. I just realized, by the way, I've got my British mug. For this.
The end of
That was not deliberate. But yeah, wow. Well, you'll have to forgive me for that if you think that was a bad thing to do on July 4th. But no, it's not. It's all in good jest because remember, the original colonies and original laws and original culture all came from the United Kingdom, and now the UK and US are best of friends. So I will tell you what I'm proud of as a naturalized citizen. I've been a naturalized citizen for over a decade, and I'm very proud of the United States for so many reasons. I think the whole country has a tremendous can do attitude and an optimism that doesn't exist in other places. I also believe that the foundations of this country are so strong. The Constitution and those founding fathers, my goodness, the level of respect that I have for them, even though I have my issues with modern American culture, I do think that the founding of this country was built on such strong virtues. The Constitution, I mean, even think about what happened to the pandemic. Many people went back to the Constitution as something to be held up on a pedestal and say, look, this is what we're all about. This is why certain things can't happen because those values kind of endure. We are about freedom. We're about individual choice. And I think that if you look at the last 250 years, the example that America has set and how other countries have looked towards America, and being an overwhelming force of good in the world. Of course, not everything is perfect. It never is. But as far as empires go, if you look at empires throughout history, the United States has actually brought a lot to the world, including technology, including many forms of transport. You're watching this podcast right now, social media, a lot of things started first in the United States, that culture of innovation. And I hope that continues. And I hope, as far as healthcare goes, that we can continue on a path to improve. I believe it was one of the original founding fathers who talked about America always being a work in progress. Yes, there's lots of imperfections, but it's always that drive to try to bend the arc in the right direction. So on that note, happy 4th again. Go enjoy the rest of your day. Wishing you the best of health. Do check in the links down below for our natural health and well-being store, where we have a special today on July the 4th, 25% off all products. Linked down below for the weekend. Ohighwellness.com if you're in the USA, North America. Ohighwellness.co if you're in the UK, Europe. We will speak again very soon.